All right. Well, welcome everybody to another Tuesday Together Talk. I'm going to give people just a few minutes to get back in um, so that we can get ready to start our last segment for Black History Month. I am Reverend Rebecca Burrow. I am the founder and CEO of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity. And as you come on in for this evening, I want you to just drop us some comments, say hello, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever the time zone you might be in. I just want us to make sure we sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation for this evening. I have with me, good evening, Darlene Evans. Thanks for tuning in. I have with me this evening Pastor Reginald Holmes, and I'm going to ask him in just a few minutes. I'm going to ask him to tell you all a little bit something about himself. But before we do, I know every week I come on here and I talk about being the founder and CEO of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity. And a lot of you still don't know what that means. So I want you to go to our website, www.reconciliationandequity.com, www.reconciliationandequity.com. Check us out. Look at the work that we're trying to do to create a more equitable, inclusive, and just world. But the other thing I want to talk about also is that we also offer mediation for congregations. So whether your church is going through some sort of transition, some division, divisiveness, dissension, we are available to help you navigate those issues and challenges in the most confidential manner possible. So make sure you check us out. And if you know of a church or if you know of an organization that needs of our services, please refer them to us. We'll be more than happy to help. All right. So, good evening. Welcome once again. This is our last segment for this Black History Month. And you all know that we have been talking about our history can't be erased. And one of the reasons why I found it important to talk about this subject is because of the different legislations and things that are going on across our country. Hey, Rachel, thanks for joining us. We have a lot of chaos, really, and confusion going on around our country. And so I want us to make sure that we are aware that no matter what, our history can't be erased. So, good evening, Minister Janice Smith, Evangelist Janice Smith. You're going to have to let me know which one to call you by, okay? Thank you for joining us. Now, Pastor Reginald Holmes, he is the pastor of New Covenant a Christian church out in Denver, Colorado. And I'm going to allow him a few minutes just to let you all get to know who he is. And I do need to let you all know that he is one of my husband's former students. He knew my husband before I knew my husband. So they go way back. So Pastor Reginald Holmes, please tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do and why you do it. Oh, we can't hear you. Pastor Holmes, we can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Miss
Okay,
Rebecca.
there you go. Okay.
And I am so honored to be on your program. I don't, you can't hear me?
Now, yeah, it's kind of lagging though.
I I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you can hear me, but it's lagging?
Right. Yes. So what we the challenge that we might
I'm so sorry. We've got inclement weather out here. I don't know if that's affecting things or not, but I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So because Pastor Holmes is having some issues, what I'm going to do is go ahead and get us into this
I can
conversation.
hear
I'm
you
going to,
fine, Rebecca. I hear
okay.
you. I hear you fine.
It's lagging. And so you're probably about 3 minutes behind me. So I'm going to remove you and have you to come back in. Okay, y'all. So because I know that delay can be kind of I guess tricky to navigate because he couldn't hear me and I couldn't hear him. So I'm going to try to get him to come back in. Okay. So um y'all give me just a minute. This is technology, okay? Eh, um hold on just a second. All right. So as we are going on through this evening, what I want for you all to go back to the questions that I asked you last week as we were closing out, and I want to know what you're doing to celebrate or honor Black History Month. Let me know what you are doing uh, at home, on your job, at your church, or whatever, wherever you might be. Janice, on your program that you have, let me know what you all are doing to honor Black History Month. So, as you're doing that, I want to talk a bit about this issue that we're having in within not just the state of Florida, but where I'm seeing it all around the country, where there's legislation to restrict the teaching of Black history within our schools, or even in Florida, the bill is written so that it talks about restricting discomfort for people within even our private workspaces or private work setting or private businesses. And yes, Darlene, they talk about CRT, but they don't just talk, it's not specific to CRT. The bill is actually written so that it is all encompassing. Um, and they try to target CRT, which really isn't taught in our high schools and elementary schools anyway, more in a college setting where students have to actually opt into those classes if they want to take those classes. They get the choice of enrolling, so that shouldn't even be an issue because if a student wants to enroll in those classes, they can. But within the state of Florida, they have this particular legislation written in such a fashion that anyone that feels like it's uncomfortable for them, it's causing them discomfort, then they can uh they can say I'm uncomfortable, then go speak to their boss or to their teacher or to the principal, and then whatever was being taught in that moment can no longer be taught. Now, I need to hear from y'all on this because my question is, how is it that somebody can decide what makes someone else comfortable? How do and not only that, how do I become responsible for someone else's comfort or comfortability? You understand what I mean? So at any given reason, for any given reason, at any given time, anyone can say that what you're saying is making me uncomfortable because we can't own someone else's feelings, right? We don't know what's going to make someone else uncomfortable. But yet, that's the standard for this particular bill. So I need for y'all to talk back at me and let me know, uh, you know, what what is it that you're thinking when you start looking at these bills? I know Now said that he's on. Thank you now for joining us. Indiana also, they're having some issues with they're having some of the same challenges. They're pushing these bills forth, and let me tell y'all why I have a concern about this. My concern is that ultimately, what becomes someone's discomfort, it treads upon my civil rights, my rights as a human being. That's my issue with this particular law. So let's see. I think we got Pastor Holmes back. We're going to try this again, y'all. And if not, we'll have to have him on for another segment if it doesn't work this time. Pastor Holmes, can you hear me? Okay, I think we still have a delay. So I think what we'll do, we'll try to get Pastor Holmes to come back. I know you can hear me, but the delay is so off and your camera's frozen. So I'm so sorry about this, you all. Okay, so what we're going to do, like I said, ultimately we'll have him to come back on and talk to us because I really want to get his thoughts, and he is definitely a strong social justice advocate, and has a lot to say. But I don't see any comments right now, so I need you all's comments. I need to know, what are you all doing for Black History Month? What are you all doing for Black History Month? All right, just shout it out, write it down, put it down, and perhaps we all have a delay today. How are you celebrating Black History Month? So, as I was saying, back to this particular legislation, I'm just going to read you all a piece of this legislation, so that you'll understand my concern with this particular bill. So the bill is it's Senate Bill 148, and a bill to be entitled "An Act Relating to Individual Freedom." Um, and so basically, it says that it's providing that subjecting any individual as a condition of employment, membership, certification, licensing, credentialing, or passing an examination to training, instruction, or any other required activity that espouses, promotes, advances, uh, inoculates, or compels such individual to believe specified concepts constitutes discrimination based on race, color, sex, or national origin. And it goes on to talk about how the bill is designed, of course, to prevent members of one race, color, sex, or national origin, or morally superior to members of another race, color, sex, or national origin. The second one is an individual by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. And as you all can see, I'm going to put this particular link the in the comments so you all can look it up and have it on hand for yourselves. But as you all can see, this whole idea of these laws are designed to prevent the teaching of Black history. Now, what I have, I rarely enjoy Facebook. I know I'm on here. I'm on Facebook and YouTube right now, but I don't enjoy reading all the different comments and different things that happen throughout the day because there's a lot to take in and it can become overwhelming. But there is one that has been going around that I really liked, and it basically said, "Imagine a country being so ashamed of their history that they don't want it taught." Something I'm paraphrasing. Um, so imagine that the history of the United States has been so difficult and hard for certain groups of people, African Americans, African Black people, brown people, that we don't want to talk about that history. It makes us uncomfortable. I'm still trying to figure out, how is it that it makes you uncomfortable and yet we have to live it? We have been living it. We continue to have to live it because we continue to have to fight for the right to be heard, to have equality, inclusion, equity, justice. We still have to fight for those things. And now you don't want to even have a conversation about the history that brought us here. So, all right, before I go too far down there, let me pull up a couple of these comments. Janice says, exactly, because what they are really saying is your feelings don't matter. Yeah, our feelings don't matter, but white feelings do matter, and that's the challenge. Then they want to add the whole idea of superiority as being an issue because we talk about white privilege, and that's really what they're suggesting in that bill. We talk about those things because they're real to Black lived experiences, but yet when you write a bill that says that we don't want to talk about these things, then you are trampling on my rights and you're trampling on my history. You're trampling on my experiences as a person. And so then you're saying that mines don't matter. However, the persons that are white, theirs do matter. That's the issue I have with this whole idea of this law that they're putting out, that it's okay to say, no, we don't want this taught because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But nobody is concerned about how uncomfortable it makes me feel to know that I do not have the right to have conversations about equity, inclusion, and diversity, and critical race theory, and the 1619 projects, Black history, any of those things that's real about who we are and how this country was founded and built and established, and the perpetuation of systemic racism that continues to keep this country afloat because of the inequities in pay and all those other things. Sharon says, so now we're legislating around people's emotional immaturity. Yes, Sharon, absolutely. Because we know the history of this country. We know that only the discomfort of non-brown Black people will be acknowledged. And that's right. That's my point exactly. So well said from the attorney. So it's as if our feelings continue to not matter. And all we're saying is we need to talk about it. We want you to fix these broken systems that perpetuates inequities and injustices. Yes, we absolutely want you to fix those systems. But I don't think any of us are suggesting that we're holding someone responsible, someone currently alive today, responsible for what their ancestors did. But what we are holding you responsible for is the fact that you continue to benefit from those privileges and things as a result of the systems and the capitalism that your ancestors put in place. That's what we want to draw attention to, is those very issues. Thank you, Sharon, so much for that comment. Okay, as far as celebrating Black History Month, we are listening to and watching various stories of our history. This weekend, we watched a few episodes about the Underground Railroad that ventured into the West, which I never knew about. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. And I know Sharon's talking about my granddaughter, Bailey Rain, and her. They've been watching the Underground Railroad that ventured into the West. And that's good. And that's one of the reasons why I say that no matter what they do, no matter what legislations are put in place, when we teach our children, our history can't be erased, because then our children know and understand their history, and they begin to share it with their children and then their children's children. We keep it going that way. That's one of the benefits of being living in the oral traditions and understanding the importance of narratives and storytelling. And so that's what we have to continue to do. If they don't talk about it, that's fine. We keep talking about it, right? Darlene says they fail to admit it's American history. It is. It is, because when we talk about Black history, I want us to get past this idea that Black history started in America. Our history didn't start here. And Marcus and I talked, Reverend Marcus Derek White and I talked about this in our last segment a couple of weeks ago. Our history did not start in the United States. It didn't. It didn't start in those 13 colonies. That's not the beginning of our history. And so we have to learn how to also reach back into our history, Black history, from our descendants to our forefathers, our foremothers, those that came before us, long before this country was established. Our history starts way back in Genesis. If you're a Bible reader, read your Bible, okay? And now says they are ashamed to teach it. How uncomfortable were we going when we were going through it? Yeah. And so not just enslavement of Black people, of African people, we continue to be asked to deny our feelings. Deny your feelings. That's not real. Or we get guilted into this place of not wanting to hurt someone's feelings because of our very own feelings. When we start talking about our lived experiences, individually or collectively, what it's like for us from day to day to try to navigate life in a country that still struggles to show value to Black people. When we start talking about those things, people often either get offended or they struggle to understand. And so when we try to pull them into that space of try to just hear what I'm saying, just you might not agree with it because it's not your experience, but I need for you to at least hear my experience, and this is what I'm feeling. So it might make you uncomfortable. Okay, that's fine. Then maybe if we were uncomfortable together, then maybe we can remedy some of these issues that we're having and some of these broken systems, or systems that's designed to keep people oppressed and marginalized in this country. There's no reason why we're still struggling with the Voters' Right Act. I mean, come on now. There's no reason that we should still be having this issue, that it's a problem. There's no reason why we should still be looking at a justice system that fails Black people. But we are. And those are real issues. So Sharon says, but yet we, brown and Blacks, have to go through the aftershocks and ongoing injustices with no legal response. And Sharon, you know, that's been my concern about this entire issue that's coming up with all of this legislation stuff. Um, I'm trying to figure out who is fighting for the other side, because I realize that a law in the state of Florida is getting ready to be passed that tramples on my rights as a citizen. I need to know who's going to fight for my rights. Who's going to fight for our rights collectively? Somebody needs to be figuring that out. Let me know. So, Janice says Sunday is Black Heritage Day. There will be speakers on various things such as church history and history of families that established the church. I believe there will be representation from Bethune-Cookman University. That's good. We need to do that. And Janice, that's also a reminder of why our history can't be erased, is because when we struggled to be accepted into institutions, or when we weren't even accepted in learning institutions or academic institutions, we had some people that were smart enough and wise enough to say, if they won't have us, then we go ahead and we get our own. And there is some power in HBCUs. There's some great minds that have come through historically Black colleges. What we need to do now is understand that there might come a time where we're going to have to start establishing rather, some schools. And if we don't establish our own schools, then what we will do is we'll learn to teach our children. We'll teach them not just during Black History Month, but we're going to teach them all throughout the year. Every day, deposit a seed of Black history into your children's lives, into your grandchildren's lives, your godchildren, your nieces, your nephews, whoever you have contact with. Start them early as young children. Start them. That was one of the things I loved about my husband. Yes, y'all gonna hear about him for a little while. I told y'all that. But my husband, you know, even before Bailey Rain could read a book, he was already giving her books and talking about Black history and things to him. And her mom, Bailey's mom, continues to do that. Bailey is the granddaughter. But you have to start your children early. I love that Marcus, I showed you all a picture last week of Marcus, who had shared the Black History Moment. It was the Black Church video, and they watched that. You know, I love watching whenever I go visit my daughter and son-in-law and my grandkids, I love watching him read to my grandboys. He reads them, and he reads some books where they can see themselves and hear about things concerning themselves. I love that. And that's what we have to learn how to do early on with our children, so that it's instilled in them. And so when a law that comes to threaten their rights, when it's presented and then passed, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren has the knowledge and the insight and wisdom to say, no matter what, our history can't be erased, because now they're going to keep telling it and they're going to keep fighting for it. So, Rachel, who cares about them feeling uncomfortable? Black history need to be taught the right way. No sugarcoating. I agree with you, Miss Rebecca. Thank you, Rachel. One of my concerns, Rachel, is, for me, it's a balancing act a lot of times when I'm trying to navigate the concerns of people that just don't get it or don't understand it, right? There are some people that, and I'm gonna use this term, Sharon, you'll understand why I'm using it. There are some people that are just ignorant to Black history, to Black lived experience. And those are the people that just don't know. So I try to balance the people that don't know with the ones that don't care. They know, but they don't care. Those are two different groups of people for me. So I'm going to be concerned about the people that might be uncomfortable, who just don't know. They're ignorant to Black history and Black lived experiences for whatever reason. Their worldview is probably one that they didn't have interaction with Black folks and things like that. Or they have just never been, thought about how people live differently than themselves. But what I don't want is for people who do know and don't care. I'm not giving them a pass. I'm not giving them a pass. I want them to understand that when they decide to trample on my rights as a Black woman, that now they are trampling on their own, because ultimately, you all know I talk about interrelatedness all the time. Ultimately, what you do to me is going to come back on you. I know they don't think it. I know they don't feel it. They think they're I think they're safe. They think everything is okay. But ultimately, it's going to come back on all of us as a society. Andrea, hey Andrea D. Evans Dixon. Let me tell y'all, I was just looking at my book, Andrea, right? Intentional. Y'all remember we had her last year talking about her book, Intentional. If you haven't got it, you still need to get it. Andrea said, for your consideration, the attack on Black history was watered and began to bloom when whites saw the number of whites who recognized that Black lives do matter. Amen. Whites joined with Blacks in protests in groves around the world. This movement made the whites who want to retain their misguided privilege extremely scared. Whites will soon be the minority, and that scares them beyond measure. Yes, yes, it absolutely does. I remember saying this it's been years ago when they first started talking about by 2050 white people would be the minority. They started talking about that way at the beginning of the 2000s. And I knew then that we were getting ready to have an issue, because anytime you threaten somebody's majority status, they're going to be concerned. The only thing I do want to say to that, Andrea, and I'm so glad you pointed this out, we have to remember that just because these pieces of legislation is getting so much attention, and you're hearing so much noise around it, that there are a lot of people, white people, who are concerned about Black lives. And that's the truth. There are a lot of people. And if you think about what we even have seen in the last couple of even back during President Barack Obama's election, the popular vote, even though Hillary wasn't elected against Trump, she still won the popular vote. We still had Biden won the popular vote. And so for me, when I start thinking about the popular vote and what those three political figures was standing for, I realized that there are a lot of people that are concerned about injustice and inequities in this world. They're concerned about systemic racism. They're concerned about these things. But because those aren't the folks making the laws, that's where the battle seems like the wicked seems to be prospering, right? And if they want to say I call them wicked, then they just go over to the Bible and they'll figure that out later on. Janice, help me out. So they are the ones that are really, they feel like we feel like we're at a loss sometimes, but we're not. We're really not. And so what I think becomes important is that we don't group everybody into that one category of, you don't because you're of a certain hue, that you don't care about Black people issues. That's just absolutely not true. There are a lot of white people that do care and are concerned. And some of them, they're a little misguided in trying to be an ally or what have you. But a number of them are doing everything they can to try to figure out how they can support what's going on in America and actually around the world. Sharon is clapping for something. probably what I said about her dad. Our Darlene Maynard Haynes, that's my aunt Darlene. She said our history is American history because we are part of America. So they have to teach the whole of American history, and that's exactly what I mean, Aunt Darlene, when I say when people start thinking that they are trampling on your rights, they begin also to trample on their very own. If you are trying to deconstruct history to make it appealing to favor your worldview, then what you're doing is you're teaching your children also a false history, a false narrative. And there are some consequences to that. There become consequences to it when we start thinking about how we came to be as a country and how we have become better over time and now worse. But that's what happens when we start only teaching a history that supports one perspective. So now your children don't even know and understand some of the things about their ancestors, white people history that leaves out black people history. So when you only want to teach white history that makes people feel good, or do what basically what we were taught back in elementary school. They taught us King, some of King, just a few things on King, and a few things on Rosa Parks. Um, they did teach us that we were enslaved people, black folks, but they didn't. We didn't get a lot of what that all meant and how that came to be. We didn't have a lot of that information as black folks, other than the narratives that came from our forefathers and foremothers, our grandparents and things. But now we're talking about trying to even remove the little bit that's there and to make white history become more appealing. And you can't do that, because then you have to start saying certain people didn't exist. Because if you say if you start looking into some of those early slave owners that were also some of our early political figures and presidents and things, then you have to start crossing them out. Yeah, you can try to teach it and act like, you know little black and interracial kids weren't a result of some of the stuff that occurred in our history. But ultimately, the truth will be exposed, right? The truth will reveal itself. Now, that ain't just Rebecca. That's y'all go to the Bible if you want to. Sharon, everything you just said is part of why it's so exhausting to be black in this country and in the workplace. We are constantly making adjustments for others and often holding back our own feelings. Yep. And so not only is it exhausting to be black in America, it's also why black folks have heart disease, high blood pressure, sugar diabetes, why we are leading in cancer and things, because we have to hold so much in. We carry so much. And let's not talk about infant mortality. Black moms dying in childbirth and things. Not because they don't have insurance, but because of the pain of having to carry the load of not being treated uh, equitable on their jobs in healthcare settings. So we carry all of that every day. Darlene says, for Black History Month, I've attended events sponsored by NAACP promoting Black history and all of our accomplishments. Thank you, Darlene, for contributing to the NAACP with your presence and with your just being there to support. That's very important that we do support these entities. I know that they're not all perfect. I've heard some of the stories. You all have heard some of the stories, but if you're not involved in it, then don't complain. Get involved and try to make it better. So thank you, Darlene, for being a part of that. Janice said absolutely to something. And so I'll just take that as an amen. I think that is the whole thing. We just want the whole truth told, right? Just tell the truth. Y'all remember that game show? I'm dating myself now, To Tell the Truth. We just want the truth to be told. And if you won't tell it, then it's up to me to tell it, right? It's up to you to tell it. If they won't tell it in the schools, if they won't tell it on the jobs, it's up to us to tell it. And so as long as I'm afforded some sort of platform, whether it's virtual, print, whatever, I'm going to do my part in telling it. And that's what I want from the Tuesday Together Talk audience. I want you all to do the very same thing. I want you all to be willing to tell the truth. It's our responsibility. And I don't want us just to wait until Black History Month. I said to you all the other week, imagine if a church, if a pastor says, for this year, this entire year, every lesson in our church, Bible study, Sunday school, church school, women's study, men's study, whatever study, Sunday sermons, everything will center around Black history. Children's church, high school kids church. Imagine if we took a year, 1 year. I hope that it would become more, but imagine if we would take 1 year and the entire church was on one accord in that way, where where they were teaching Black history to the congregants. Imagine what we could learn. Imagine what would go forth and the power that will happen in the lives of our children when they begin to know that their forefathers and foremothers came to America on a ship, but before they got here, who they were. And I know we were kings and queens, but I want us to go even further than that in our story. Imagine if we knew the tribes and things that we've come from. If we understood some of the rituals and some of the rites of passages of our people. Imagine if our children knew that. And then as we come into the America, we can talk about the strength of our mothers and fathers that were able to endure being enslaved. And the strength of making it through Reconstruction era and all those other things that have happened in our history, the civil rights movement, even up till today, some of the things that we're enduring and we're strong enough to make it through. But not only strong enough to make it through, we're strong enough to fight through and fight for the change that needs to happen. But imagine if that is what our church, our congregation, not just our children, but adults too, because a lot of adults don't have a full understanding of our history because they weren't taught it when they, we were allowed to go into public school systems. A lot of it wasn't taught because they wanted us to assimilate and become part of the white culture. And so they didn't teach us about our Blackness and why we should be so proud as Black people. So, and to be honest, if it wasn't for the likes of folks like James Brown that told us to say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, and Nina Simone that taught us that, there was something incredible about being young, gifted, and Black. You know, those songs taught us things about our history. So imagine if our churches, if the Black church was focused on who we were through the lens of our forefathers and foremothers. Imagine the gift that would be to our children. That our Sunday school books, we weren't, that we weren't afraid, right? To see Sunday school books that reflected our image. You know, imagine. So let me see here. Jenna said it is up to all of us to tell it year round. Absolutely. No matter what platform we have, it may not be your area of expertise. History might not be, but you can always pick up a book and read and then carry that message. It may be one area that you're knowledgeable in when concerning Black history. Teach it. Teach it. Train up our children, right? Minister Tony Cameron, Reverend Tony Cameron, thank you for joining us tonight. Amen. Tell the truth at all times. Yes. Amen. Because we are history. We are. And so our history can't be erased by the laws. Indianapolis, folks, I saw, I still read the Indy Star online. And I saw this story that was talking about y'all school system had agreed that they were just gonna stop teaching Black history also. And some of the teachers are expressing concern because they are afraid of what they are doing will get them into trouble. So some of the teachers that are teaching Black history are afraid. Now they're like, I don't know what to do. I gotta teach history, right? I'm responsible for teaching history, and Black history is a part of history, but yet I'm being told that I can't teach certain elements of it. Why are we doing that to our teachers? Why are we doing that to our teachers? And furthermore, why are we allowing for those voices of foolishness? That's the foolish people to have such a say so and have a major platform in our school systems. So it goes back to that whole idea that we have a responsibility to think about who we are electing, also to our school boards. So you all know that we get to vote in our school board, right? In some states, I know you vote in your superintendent as well, or at least you can have a say so in who's going to be hired to teach, be the superintendent of your school system. We got to do better about making sure or ensuring that we are paying attention to the person's not only just their credentials, but their background, their worldview, who they are, how do they perceive justice in this country. And now, how do we think about Black history? Right? So let me we asked this question the other week, and I'm going to ask you all to revisit it with me. What is the threat to Black history when it is not taught by Black people? So we've talked about everybody else, them not wanting it to be taught. But do any of you all see the benefit to, allowing white people to remove themselves in a sense, not totally, not altogether? They still have a responsibility to it, but when they are not the major voices in teaching Black history, when we then allow Black people to own the teaching and what is being taught. I need for y'all to comment. And one of the reasons I wanted to ask this question again is because I know that we can think that, you know, everything has been great, up until this point. Now that they're trying to remove Black history from the school, we start thinking about, oh my goodness, they're going to take our history out of the school, and it is a problem. And I will give you that it is a problem. However, just because they're not teaching Black history, aren't is there some benefits to that? Paula says misconceptions of the truth. Absolutely. So some of the benefits is that when we teach it with a context of experience. We teach it with knowing some of the stories that come from our forefathers and foremothers, our grandparents and great grandparents. We know some of that story. And so there's a context to it. And there's that lived experience that makes it come alive. Whereas sometimes when the children are reading it or hearing it in school, they're only getting, that piece of paper, which is very important. That book is very important. But when that book comes to life and hops off those pages, those words hop off the page and begin to speak to the spirit of our children, it changes the way that they see themselves in history. And it changes the way they think about it. And not just our history, not just our children, but also little white boys and girls, white adults. When they listen to our experiences and our history from our voices, these are those that want to know, then it changes what they have read, or transform, I think is a better word. It transforms what they have read into real lived experiences. I'll give you just a real easy clue of this. Sometimes when we read the Bible, a lot of times we romanticize every story in the Bible. We do. We don't think about the context of how people were living, and the we don't think about the time, the historical context. We don't think about the gender roles and the patriarchy and tradition, and we don't think about all that stuff. We don't think about even when we talk about being in exile, we don't think about 400 years of exile. Oh my goodness. We don't think about what that really means. But when you get in there and you really start to connect with the words are saying, and when you read it out loud and then you can hear it, and then when you relate it to our own experience as Black people, it comes to life. So what I'm saying is, what happens when we own our history, when we teach it, it comes to life. It takes on a meaning that sometimes is missed in the delivery of people that don't understand it and has never lived it. So, y'all, it's 6:55. I'm going to say this real quick. I appreciate you all for hanging out with us, especially those that came on earlier, and we were supposed to have Pastor Reginald Holmes from the New Covenant Church in Denver, Colorado. Unfortunately, we tried to get him on, and he was able to come on. However, they're having some inclement weather out there in Denver, Colorado, as expected. And so the technology issues were just very difficult to maneuver tonight. So we're going to have him on, and maybe when some of their snow melt, but we're going to get him on here because he's definitely a voice that you need to hear. And for those of you that heard me earlier say that he was one of my my husband's students, and so I really would love for him to come on and share. And he's a very gifted preacher and pastor, and definitely is fighting hard, fighting the fight for social justice and change in this country. So we will definitely have him on. I appreciate you all for hanging out with me this evening. You know, I had to ad lib a little bit. Hope y'all didn't get too bored with it, but I'm so thankful that you all decided to hang in there with me on this evening. Please consider sharing and liking this video, and check us out on YouTube. If you don't want to be on Facebook, you can always check us out on YouTube at our Reconciliation and Equity. We'd love to see you over there. And also, I was saying earlier at the beginning of our video, somebody is laughing at me. I was saying earlier at the onset, a lot of times I talk about being the founder and CEO of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity. I know that some of you have no idea what that means. I need for you to go over to the website, www.reconciliationandequity.com. I need for you to check us out. Find out what we do. Find out why I'm so passionate about having these conversations with you. The other thing that I want you all to know is that through all the work that I do, one of the things I don't speak about enough is the reconciliation piece. And a lot of the reconciliation work I do comes through mediation and helping churches transform from a place of division and dissension. And even when churches are in transition, we're here to help you navigate that process and get you to a place where you are now on one accord. And this work has probably become just as important to me as the work I do in inclusion and equity. And I tell you why. Because there is so much crap out there being spoken about the Black church. And this is a time where we need the Black church more than ever before. Yes, my work is in whatever kind of church you have, Black, white, multicultural, whatever it is. But I am specifically talking about the Black church right now because we have a lot going on in our churches, and we are living in a generation in a time with a generation that has decided that the church has no value in their life. There are so many young folks at a certain age that have decided that I don't need that. It's too much drama in the church. And so what I'm here to do is help churches that are really going through some of the most difficult transitions through dissension and division. I'm here to help them get through those difficulties in a way that will make the church healthy, holy, and allow for everyone to feel included in the congregation. So if you know of any church that might be needing some help, check me out. You can drop me a private line. Whatever work I do within churches is always confidential, just like all the other work I do with organization. It remains confidential because that's becomes key to people being able to freely express themselves and know that their business, their family business ain't gonna hit the internet and social media. So we have a couple of more comments. Tony says amen and amen. Thank you, Minister Reverend Cameron. I appreciate you all so much. Again, thank you all so much for hanging out with me on this evening. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep pushing forward. We're going to continue the work of impressing upon this society, our society, that Black history can't be erased. It just can't be. It can't be dismantled. It can't be pushed to the side, hidden in some dark corner, or some dark closet. That's not going to happen, because we're going to keep talking about it. So God bless you all. Thank you again for being here. I'm Reverend Rebecca Burrow, founder and CEO of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity. You can always follow us here at Facebook at Reconciliation and Equity, or you can check us out on Instagram at Reconciliation and Equity, and YouTube at Reconciliation and Equity. Make sure you like, share this video, add additional comments. I always go back and check the comments after the videos or what have you have replayed, because people do watch the replay. And, I love to engage in conversation. If you're not a part of Tuesday Together Talk, what are you waiting for? Okay. And if you're not a part of Tuesday Together Talk, Take Two, that's our private group. Let me know you're interested in being part of the private group. We have some after the talk kind of conversations, stuff that we can't let out too much for everybody's ears to hear. And then of course, there's plenty of things that we can't. But we would love for you to join our private group as well, Tuesday Together Talk Take group. God bless you. Have a good evening. Remember, this is what is it? 2/22/2022, right? This is Tuesday. And today is Tuesday Together Talk. God bless you. I love you all. Good night.